Negative thinking rarely arrives as a loud voice. It usually enters quietly like a whisper that sounds almost reasonable. It tells you that you are not ready, that you are not good enough, that other people are somehow stronger, smarter, or more deserving than you. At first, it feels like caution, like a small voice trying to protect you from disappointment. But the longer you listen, the more that whisper grows into a wall around your life. Many people spend years believing every thought that appears in their mind. They assume that if a thought exists, it must be true. But the mind is not always a truthful storyteller. It repeats old fears, old wounds, and old memories, and then it dresses them up as facts. If someone once told you that you could not succeed, that sentence can live in your mind for decades. It echoes through your choices, your confidence, and the way you see the world. Negative thinking is not born with you. It is learned slowly. It grows from criticism that was never healed, from mistakes that were never forgiven, from fear that was never challenged. The mind learns to expect failure before success even has a chance to appear. And when you expect failure long enough, you begin to behave in ways that make failure more likely. A person who believes they cannot succeed will hesitate before trying. They will doubt their abilities even when they are capable. They will shrink their dreams so they do not have to risk disappointment. Negative thinking quietly steals opportunities before life even has a chance to offer them. But here is something powerful that many people forget. Anything that is learned can also be unlearned. The patterns of the mind are not permanent. Just as a path forms in a field when people walk the same road every day, your thoughts form pathways because you have traveled them repeatedly. Change the direction of your steps and a new path will slowly appear. The first step to killing negative thinking is awareness. You must notice the voice that speaks inside your mind. Not every thought deserves your belief. Some thoughts are simply echoes of old fears. When your mind tells you that you are not capable, pause for a moment and ask yourself a simple question. Is this a fact or is this fear speaking? Fear often disguises itself as logic. It tells you that staying small is safe. It suggests that avoiding risk will protect you from pain. But safety that comes from shrinking your potential is not safety at all. It is a quiet surrender of your possibilities. Every great achievement in human history began with someone refusing to believe the limitations placed upon them. People who changed the world did not have minds free from doubt. They simply refused to let doubt become the master of their actions. Negative thinking survives through repetition. The more you repeat a thought, the stronger it becomes. If you wake up every morning telling yourself that you are unlucky, that you are behind, that life is unfair, your mind will search for evidence to prove those statements true. The brain is a loyal servant. It looks for proof of whatever you tell it. But that same mind can become your greatest ally. When you begin to replace negative statements with empowering ones, the mind slowly begins to look for new evidence. Instead of searching for reasons why you cannot succeed, it starts noticing opportunities that once went unseen. This transformation does not happen overnight. A single positive thought cannot erase years of negative conditioning. But small changes repeated consistently create powerful shifts over time. The voice in your mind becomes stronger or weaker depending on which thoughts you feed. Imagine a garden that has been neglected for years. Weeds grow easily because no one removes them. Negative thoughts behave in the same way. They appear naturally if you do not challenge them. But when you begin pulling those weeds out, when you plant new seeds of confidence and possibility, the garden slowly begins to change. Some people believe that positive thinking means pretending life is always perfect. That is not the truth. Life will still present challenges. There will still be moments of uncertainty, loss, and struggle. Killing negative thinking does not mean denying difficulty. It means refusing to let difficulty define your identity. When something goes wrong, negative thinking says, "This proves you are not capable." A stronger mind says, "This is a lesson I can grow from." The difference between those two voices can shape the direction of an entire life. The world has a way of testing your beliefs. If you believe you are weak, life will offer moments that confirm that story. But if you believe that you can rise again after failure, every challenge becomes a chance to prove your resilience. Negative thinking is deeply connected to comparison. When people constantly measure their lives against others, they create endless reasons to feel inadequate. Someone will always appear more successful, more confident, or more accomplished. But comparison is a thief that steals joy and replaces it with insecurity. Your journey was never meant to look like someone else's path. Every person carries a different story, a different pace, and a different purpose. When you stop comparing your progress to others, you begin to see your own growth more clearly. Another powerful way to destroy negative thinking is through action. Thoughts gain power when they remain unchallenged. If your mind says you cannot do something, take a small step toward doing it anyway. Action weakens doubt faster than endless thinking ever could. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move forward even when fear is present. Every time you act despite doubt, you send a message to your mind that fear is not the ruler of your life. Negative thinking often tries to convince you that mistakes are permanent proof of failure. But mistakes are simply evidence that you are participating in life. The only people who never make mistakes are those who never try. Think about the strongest individuals you admire. Their strength did not appear without struggle. It was built through moments when they refused to let negative thoughts become their final conclusion. They faced obstacles, but they chose persistence over surrender. Your mind will sometimes replay painful memories. It will remind you of moments when things did not go as planned. But those memories are chapters, not the entire book. A single difficult experience does not define your future unless you allow it to. You have the power to rewrite the narrative inside your mind. Instead of saying I failed, you can say I learned. Instead of believing I am not strong enough, you can remember the challenges you have already survived. Gratitude is another powerful weapon against negative thinking. When the mind focuses only on what is missing, it creates the illusion that life is empty. But when you begin noticing the things that are present, the perspective begins to shift. There is strength in recognizing your blessings. The ability to breathe deeply, to learn, to grow, to love, to dream. These are not small things. They are reminders that life continues to offer possibilities. The words you speak to yourself shape your emotional landscape. If you speak harshly to yourself every day, your confidence slowly erodes. But when you treat yourself with patience and compassion, your inner strength begins to grow. Many people show kindness to everyone except themselves. They forgive the mistakes of others, but they carry endless criticism toward their own imperfections. True growth begins when you extend the same understanding to yourself that you offer to others. Negative thinking feeds on isolation. When people keep their fears hidden, those fears become heavier. But when you share your struggles with supportive individuals, you often discover that you are not alone. Human beings are stronger together than they are in silence. Encouragement from others can remind you of strengths that you temporarily forgot. Sometimes the people around you can see your potential more clearly than you can see it yourself. But even when encouragement is not available, your own belief can become a guiding light. Self-belief does not mean arrogance. It means recognizing that you possess the ability to learn, adapt, and rise beyond limitations. The most powerful shift happens when you stop treating negative thoughts as commands and start seeing them as suggestions. A thought can appear without controlling your actions. You can hear the voice of doubt and still choose courage. Every time you challenge a negative thought, you weaken its authority. Over time, the voice that once sounded convincing begins to lose its influence. It becomes quieter, less persuasive, less powerful. Confidence is not built by waiting until you feel ready. It is built by moving forward before certainty arrives. The people who achieve meaningful things are not always the most confident at the beginning. They simply refuse to let fear make their decisions. Negative thinking often predicts the worst possible outcome. It imagines embarrassment, rejection, or disappointment. But many of those fears never actually happen. And even when they do, they rarely destroy us the way we imagined. Human beings are far more resilient than their fears suggest. We adapt, we heal, we learn, we grow stronger through experiences that once seemed unbearable. Your mind is a powerful storyteller, but you are the author of which stories continue. You can choose narratives that inspire growth rather than narratives that imprison your potential. Killing negative thinking does not mean eliminating every moment of doubt. Doubt will visit from time to time, but doubt does not have to control your direction. It can simply be a passing cloud in a much larger sky. Each day offers a new opportunity to reshape your mental landscape. The thoughts you nurture today become the beliefs that guide your tomorrow. If you choose thoughts of possibility, strength, and perseverance, those thoughts will gradually become the foundation of your identity. Life is not waiting for perfect confidence before offering opportunities. It moves forward continuously, inviting you to participate. If you wait until every negative thought disappears, you may wait forever. But if you move forward despite those thoughts, you discover that courage grows with every step. Inside every human being is a quiet strength that often remains hidden beneath layers of doubt. When you begin removing those layers, when you stop feeding the fears that once dominated your thinking, that strength starts to emerge. You begin to realize that your past does not imprison your future. You begin to understand that mistakes are teachers rather than life sentences. You begin to see that your mind is not your enemy unless you allow it to become one. The journey to destroy negative thinking is not about perfection. It is about progress. Each moment you choose hope over fear, action over hesitation, and belief over doubt. You move closer to a life guided by possibility. And as that transformation continues, something remarkable begins to happen. The voice that once told you that you were not capable becomes weaker. In its place rises a quieter, steadier voice that reminds you that you are stronger than your fears, wiser than your doubts, and more powerful than the negative stories that once tried to limit your life. A single brave decision can silence 1,000 fearful thoughts. Fear often speaks loudly inside the mind, repeating every possible risk and imagining every possible failure. It paints pictures of embarrassment, rejection, and disappointment. It tells you that stepping forward is dangerous, and that staying where you are is safer. Many people spend years listening to these voices, believing that fear is a signal to stop rather than a signal to grow. Fear is powerful because it lives in the imagination. Before anything even happens, the mind begins predicting outcomes that may never occur. It creates stories about what people might think, how things might go wrong, and why success may be out of reach. When those stories repeat often enough, they begin to feel like reality. A person may avoid opportunities not because they are incapable, but because their mind has convinced them that failure is certain. But fear has a weakness. It survives mostly in thought, not in action. The moment someone takes a step forward, even a small one, fear begins to lose its authority. Action interrupts the endless cycle of doubt. It shifts the mind from imagining possibilities to experiencing reality. Many times the things we fear most turn out to be far less frightening once we face them. The mind exaggerates danger because it wants to protect you. It prefers certainty even if that certainty is limitation. The unknown feels uncomfortable because it requires courage, and courage demands movement. One brave decision has the power to break that cycle. It might be the decision to speak when you usually remain so silent. It might be the choice to try something new despite the fear of failure. It might be the moment you choose to pursue a dream that once felt too large to reach. That single act sends a powerful message to your mind that fear is no longer in charge. When people think of bravery, they often imagine dramatic acts or heroic moments. But true bravery often appears in quiet decisions. It appears when someone applies for an opportunity even though they doubt themselves. It appears when someone shares their ideas even though their voice trembles. It appears when someone chooses growth instead of comfort. Every time you make a brave decision, you change the relationship between yourself and fear. Fear may still speak, but its voice becomes less convincing. It begins to lose the control it once held over your choices. Think about how many dreams remain unfulfilled simply because fear was allowed to decide the outcome before the journey even began. A person might want to start a business, but the fear of losing money stops them before they even explore the idea. Someone might want to express their creativity, but the fear of criticism keeps their talent hidden. Another person might wish to build stronger relationships, but the fear of rejection keeps them distant. These fears often exist only in the mind, yet they shape entire lives. They quietly limit potential, shrink ambition, and reduce possibilities. Over time, people begin believing that the smaller life they have created is the only life available to them. But courage changes everything. Courage does not remove fear, but it refuses to obey it. It acknowledges the presence of doubt while choosing action anyway. That single decision creates momentum. Momentum is powerful because it transforms confidence from an idea into an experience. Confidence is not built by thinking about success. It is built by proving to yourself that you can move forward despite uncertainty. When you take one brave step, the mind begins to collect new evidence. It realizes that fear's predictions are not always accurate. It begins to understand that discomfort does not equal danger. That realization weakens the hold fear once had over your thinking. Often the hardest part of any journey is the first decision to begin. Once movement starts, the path gradually becomes clearer. The courage that felt impossible yesterday begins to feel natural tomorrow. Brave decisions also inspire growth because they expand your sense of identity. A person who repeatedly avoids challenges begins to see themselves as someone who cannot handle difficulty. But a person who repeatedly faces challenges begins to see themselves as capable and resilient. Identity shapes behavior. If you see yourself as someone who acts with courage, you will naturally begin making decisions that reflect that belief. The mind adapts to the image you hold of yourself. Fear tries to convince you that bravery must be perfect. It suggests that you must eliminate doubt before you act. But courage rarely feels perfect. It often arrives while your heart is racing and your mind is uncertain. That is what makes brave decisions so powerful. They are made despite the presence of fear, not in the absence of it. Each time you act in that moment, you weaken the habit of hesitation. Over time, the mind begins to change its expectations. Instead of predicting that you will retreat from difficulty, it begins to expect that you will move forward. That shift transforms the way you approach challenges. Brave decisions also reveal opportunities that fear once concealed. When you remain in your comfort zone, your experiences remain limited. But when you step beyond those boundaries, new possibilities appear. You meet people you might never have encountered. You develop skills you might never have discovered. You experience growth that could not occur within the safety of routine. Many of the achievements that seem impressive from the outside are simply the result of repeated brave decisions. The person who speaks confidently today may once have been terrified to share their thoughts. The individual who leads others may once have doubted their own abilities. What separates those individuals from others is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move forward anyway. Each brave choice strengthens their confidence and weakens their doubts. Fear often loses power when exposed to action because reality tends to be less dramatic than imagination. The mind creates worst-case scenarios that rarely unfold the way it predicts. Once you experience that truth, fear begins to appear less intimidating. Another important truth about brave decisions is that they create resilience. Even when things do not go exactly as planned, the experience of trying builds strength. You learn lessons that cannot be discovered through avoidance. Failure when faced with courage becomes a teacher rather than a permanent label. It shows you what can be improved and how you can grow. It reminds you that setbacks are part of the process of progress. People who avoid brave decisions miss these lessons. Their fear protects them from temporary discomfort but also prevents long-term growth. Over time, the cost of avoiding risk becomes greater than the risk itself. A single brave decision can also inspire others. Courage is contagious. When people see someone challenge fear, it reminds them that they can do the same. Your actions may give someone else the strength to take their own first step. The ripple effect of courage can extend far beyond one moment. A decision you make today may open doors that affect your future in ways you cannot yet imagine. Opportunities often appear after someone proves they are willing to step forward. Fear tries to keep your world small. Courage expands it. Fear tells you to stay where things are familiar. Courage invites you to explore what is possible. Inside every person exists a moment where they must decide whether fear will guide their life or whether courage will take its place. That decision may seem small at the time, but its consequences can shape the direction of years to come. Each brave action sends a clear message to the mind that fear is not the authority it once appeared to be. Slowly, the thousands of fearful thoughts that once filled your mind begin to quiet. They lose their urgency, their intensity, and their ability to control your choices. In their place grows a different voice, a voice that recognizes the strength created by courage, a voice that understands that progress begins with movement. A voice that reminds you that every bold step forward weakens fear and strengthens the belief that you are capable of far more than your doubts once allowed you to believe. When you stop comparing your journey to others, your confidence begins to breathe again. Comparison is one of the quietest thieves of peace and self-belief. It rarely announces itself loudly. Instead, it slips gently into your thoughts while you observe the lives of other people. You notice their achievements, their progress, their success, and slowly your mind begins measuring your life against theirs. What once felt like your own path suddenly feels smaller, slower, and somehow less meaningful. The truth is that comparison distorts reality. You are often comparing your everyday life with someone else's highlight moments. You see the results of their effort, but not the years of struggle, doubt, mistakes, and persistence that existed behind the scenes. You see the victory, but not the sleepless nights. You see the confidence, but not the fear that once lived in their heart. When comparison becomes a habit, it slowly weakens your confidence. Instead of focusing on your progress, you begin focusing on the distance between you and someone else. That distance becomes a source of frustration and self-doubt. You start believing that you are behind, that you are slower, that you somehow missed the moment when life was supposed to work in your favor. But life has never been a race with a shared finish line. Every individual carries a different story, a different set of circumstances, and a different pace of growth. Some people discover their direction early in life, while others find it after years of exploration. Some paths move quickly in the beginning and slow down later. Other journeys begin slowly and then suddenly expand with opportunity. When you constantly compare yourself to others, you ignore the uniqueness of your own journey. You begin judging your progress by standards that were never meant for you. The dreams that belong to someone else begin overshadowing the dreams that belong to your own heart. Confidence struggles to survive in an environment filled with comparison. Confidence grows through recognition of personal growth, personal effort, and personal strength. But comparison shifts your attention away from those things. It convinces you that what you have achieved is not enough simply because someone else appears to have achieved more. This mindset can quietly steal motivation. A person who constantly compares themselves to others may stop trying altogether. They may believe that success is already reserved for someone else. The mind begins to ask, what is the point of trying if someone is already ahead? Yet the reality is that progress has nothing to do with being ahead of someone else. Progress is simply movement forward from where you started. The only comparison that truly matters is the one between who you were yesterday and who you are becoming today. When you release the habit of comparison, something powerful happens inside the mind. Your attention shifts back to your own life. You begin noticing your improvements, your lessons, and the strengths you have developed along the way. Confidence begins to grow because it finally has space to exist. Instead of measuring your worth against the achievements of others, you begin appreciating your own development. Small victories start to feel meaningful again. Effort begins to feel valuable again. This shift does not mean ignoring the success of others. It simply means refusing to turn their success into a reason to doubt yourself. The accomplishments of others can become inspiration rather than a source of insecurity. Every person you admire once stood at the beginning of their own uncertain journey. They faced moments where progress felt slow and doubt felt strong. Their path was shaped by persistence, learning, and time. Your path will also be shaped by those same elements. Confidence grows when you allow yourself to move at your natural pace. Growth is rarely instant. It often appears gradually, built through small improvements repeated consistently over time. When you stop comparing timelines, you allow your progress to unfold naturally. Another powerful change happens when comparison disappears. Your creativity begins to return. When you are not constantly trying to imitate someone else's path, you begin discovering your own ideas, your own style, and your own voice. Comparison often pushes people to copy what others are doing because it seems safer than exploring something unique. But true fulfillment rarely comes from imitation. It comes from expressing something authentic that reflects who you truly are. When you focus on your own journey, you begin listening more carefully to your own goals and values. You start asking questions that matter to you rather than questions shaped by outside expectations. What kind of life do you truly want to build? What kind of work feels meaningful to you? What kind of growth excites your curiosity? These questions guide you toward a life that feels genuine rather than competitive. The energy that once went into comparing yourself to others becomes energy used for building your own direction. Confidence also grows stronger when you acknowledge the effort you have already invested in your journey. Many people overlook their own resilience because they are too busy noticing the achievements of others. They forget how many obstacles they have overcome, how many lessons they have learned, and how much strength they have developed. When you pause and reflect on your own progress, you begin recognizing the quiet victories that shaped your growth. Perhaps you learned patience during difficult moments. Perhaps you discovered courage when facing uncertainty. Perhaps you developed skills through persistence and practice. These experiences are evidence of your development. They deserve recognition, not dismissal. The moment you stop comparing your journey to others is the moment you begin reclaiming ownership of your life. You no longer measure your worth using someone else's milestones. You begin defining success according to your own values and aspirations. This mindset allows confidence to breathe because it removes the pressure of constant competition. You are no longer chasing approval or validation through comparison. Instead, you are building a life that reflects your authentic path. Confidence is not about believing that you are better than others. It is about recognizing that your journey has value, meaning, and purpose regardless of how it compares to anyone else's path. Every individual carries different experiences, talents, and challenges. These differences create unique opportunities for growth. When you stop comparing, you begin appreciating the individuality that makes your journey meaningful. Your progress may appear slower in some areas and faster in others. Your achievements may look different from the achievements of people around you. But difference does not equal failure. Difference simply reflects the uniqueness of your direction. Confidence grows strongest when it is rooted in self-understanding rather than comparison. When you understand your strengths, your passions, and your values, you develop a sense of direction that is not easily shaken by the progress of others. Instead of asking whether you are ahead or behind, you begin asking whether you are learning, growing, and moving closer to the life you want to create. That shift transforms the way you experience life. Every step forward becomes meaningful because it belongs to your personal journey. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to develop new strength. Every lesson becomes part of your story. When comparison fades, gratitude often takes its place. You begin appreciating the opportunities you have, the abilities you are developing, and the experiences that are shaping your character. Confidence breathes freely in that environment. It grows quietly but steadily, supported by awareness of your progress and belief in your potential. And as that confidence expands, you begin realizing that your journey was never meant to look identical to anyone else's. It was always meant to be shaped by your experiences, your choices, your growth, and the direction that your own heart continues to explore through persistence, curiosity, and determination. The life you build tomorrow begins with the thoughts you choose to believe today. Every action a person takes is first born as a thought. Before any dream becomes real, it exists quietly in the mind. Before any change appears in the world, it begins as a small idea, a belief, or a decision that forms within the heart. Thoughts are not just passing moments in the mind. They are seeds that slowly shape the direction of a life. Many people underestimate the power of what they repeatedly think. A single thought may seem small and unimportant, but thoughts rarely appear alone. They gather strength through repetition. When a thought is repeated day after day, it begins to influence emotions, decisions, and behavior. Over time, it becomes part of the identity a person carries. If someone constantly tells themselves that success is impossible, their actions will slowly align with that belief. They may hesitate to try new opportunities, avoid risks, and remain within the safety of what is familiar. Not because they lack ability, but because their mind has already decided the outcome before effort even begins. The opposite is also true. When someone begins to believe that growth is possible, that learning is available, and that progress can be achieved with persistence, their actions begin to change. They become more willing to try to explore and to move forward even when uncertainty appears. This is why the thoughts you choose today are shaping the life you will experience tomorrow. The mind becomes the architect of your future long before results appear in the outside world. What you believe about yourself influences how you approach every opportunity and every challenge. Thoughts influence emotions, and emotions influence actions. If a person believes they are incapable, discouragement appears quickly. When discouragement grows, motivation weakens. Without motivation, effort disappears. And without effort, progress becomes impossible. But when a person believes they are capable of learning, their emotional response to challenges changes. Instead of feeling defeated, they become curious. Instead of seeing obstacles as proof of failure, they see them as lessons that lead to improvement. Belief shapes perception. Two people can face the same challenge and experience it in completely different ways. One person may see the difficulty as confirmation that the task is impossible. The other may see the same difficulty as a sign that growth is taking place. This difference begins with thought. The interpretation you give to your experiences influences how you respond to them. A mind trained to expect growth will find strength even in struggle. A mind trained to expect failure will often surrender before effort has a chance to succeed. Many of the limitations people experience are not physical barriers but mental conclusions. At some point in life, they accepted a thought that defined their abilities. Perhaps someone told them they were not talented enough, not intelligent enough, or not capable enough. Over time, that message became part of the voice they heard inside their own mind. But thoughts can be challenged and replaced. The mind is not fixed. It adapts to the beliefs it repeatedly practices. Just as a person can develop negative thinking through repetition, they can also develop empowering beliefs through consistent focus. When you begin choosing thoughts that encourage growth, patience, and persistence, the mind slowly reshapes its expectations. Instead of anticipating failure, it begins to anticipate progress. Instead of focusing on limitations, it begins noticing opportunities. The process of changing your thinking does not require perfection. Negative thoughts may still appear from time to time. They may arrive suddenly, shaped by past experiences or moments of doubt. But the key difference is that you no longer accept every thought as truth. You begin observing your thoughts with awareness. When a limiting belief appears, you question it rather than obeying it. You ask whether that thought reflects reality or simply reflects fear. This moment of awareness creates space for a different choice. Choosing a different thought may feel unfamiliar at first. If the mind has spent years practicing doubt, confidence may feel unnatural in the beginning. But with repetition, new mental habits begin to form. Consider the way physical strength develops. Muscles grow stronger through repeated effort. The mind grows stronger through repeated belief and focus. Each time you choose a thought that supports growth, you strengthen a new pathway in your thinking. Gradually, those supportive thoughts become easier to access. They begin appearing more naturally because the mind has practiced them repeatedly. Over time, the internal voice that once focused on limitation begins to shift toward possibility. Your thoughts also influence the energy you bring into your daily actions. When you believe your efforts matter, you approach tasks with greater dedication. You become more attentive, more creative, and more resilient when challenges appear. People who believe in their ability to grow often persist longer than those who doubt themselves. This persistence creates a powerful advantage. Progress rarely happens instantly. It appears through consistent effort over time. The willingness to continue working, learning, and improving often determines success more than natural talent. That willingness is fueled by belief. When you believe your effort will lead to improvement, you remain committed even during difficult moments. Thoughts also influence the way you interact with others. A person who believes in their own value tends to communicate with confidence and authenticity. They are more willing to express ideas, share perspectives, and pursue meaningful connections. In contrast, someone who constantly doubts their worth may hesitate to speak or contribute. Their ideas remain hidden, not because they lack insight, but because their thoughts have convinced them that their voice is unimportant. Changing the thoughts you believe can transform these interactions. As confidence grows internally, it begins to appear externally. Others notice the shift in energy, the clarity of expression, and the quiet strength that comes from self-belief. Another important truth is that the mind tends to search for evidence that supports the beliefs it already holds. If you believe life is full of opportunity, you begin noticing possibilities that others may overlook. If you believe life is full of obstacles, your attention naturally focuses on difficulties. This selective attention shapes your experience of the world. Two individuals may live in the same environment, but perceive it differently based on their beliefs. By choosing thoughts that emphasize growth, resilience, and possibility, you train your mind to notice opportunities rather than barriers. This does not mean ignoring challenges. It means approaching challenges with a mindset that looks for solutions rather than surrender. The life you build tomorrow is not determined by luck alone. It is shaped by the decisions you make each day. And those decisions are influenced by the thoughts you choose to believe. When you believe that your actions matter, you take steps toward improvement. When you believe that effort creates progress, you continue learning and adapting. When you believe that change is possible, you remain open to new paths and new ideas. Over time, these choices accumulate. Small actions repeated consistently lead to meaningful transformation. The future gradually reflects the beliefs that guided your behavior. Your thoughts today are quietly designing the possibilities of your tomorrow. Every encouraging belief plants a seed of progress. Every empowering idea strengthens your ability to move forward. By choosing thoughts that support growth, courage, patience, and resilience, you begin shaping a future that reflects those same qualities. The life you experience in the years ahead will mirror the beliefs you practiced in the quiet moments of your thinking. The beliefs that influenced your decisions guided your actions and slowly transformed potential into reality through the steady power of belief and consistent effort.